I never thought I'd be this person, the one who constantly counts pennies and feels like no matter how hard I try, I'm just sinking deeper into a financial quicksand I can't escape. But here I am, in my late 20s, juggling bills, rent, groceries, and a paycheck that seems to shrink every month against an ever-growing mountain of expenses. The world keeps telling me to keep going, to stay positive, and invest in myself, but no one talks about what it's like to live the day-to-day, clawing just to keep your head above water when the system itself feels designed to pull you under. I grew up with the usual middle-class dreams: go to college, get a decent job, maybe own a home one day, start a family. I believed hard work would pay off, that if I showed up, kept my head down, and kept grinding, I'd build a life that felt stable and secure. But somewhere along the way, the math stopped adding up. The cost of living rose in a way I couldn't control. Rent kept increasing, healthcare costs lurked like a ticking bomb, and everything, gas, food, utilities, just seemed to edge higher, month after month. Meanwhile, my paycheck barely budged. Promotions came and went without the kind of raises that could keep up. Overtime was a band-aid, not a cure. Every morning starts with the same sinking feeling, a quick scan of my bank account, trying to convince myself that this week's paycheck will stretch enough to cover the essentials. I'm not talking about extras or luxuries, just the basics. Rent, utilities, phone bill, groceries. Then the surprise costs show up: a broken phone charger, a medical copay, or an unexpected car repair. Each one feels like a slap in the face, a reminder that the safety net I imagined is more like a frayed thread. I've learned to keep a spreadsheet, not out of obsession, but out of necessity, tracking every dollar, every expense. It's a mental load that never leaves me, even on days off. There's a loneliness in all this that I didn't expect. I watch friends move forward with weddings, vacations, buying cars, and I'm stuck in the same cycle of scrimping and saving, waiting for some elusive break. Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible, that no one really sees the exhaustion beneath the surface, the anxiety that never quite fades, the guilt that I'm not doing enough even though I'm exhausted from trying. The system is built for winners and losers, and it's hard not to feel like I'm on the losing side, not because of a lack of effort, but because the rules are stacked against me. I've had to put a lot of dreams on hold. I wanted to travel, to explore, to experience things that make life feel rich beyond the paycheck. I wanted to save for a down payment on a home, to build a little sanctuary I could call mine. Even simple things, like going out with friends or buying a new outfit, have become calculated decisions weighed against immediate survival. It's exhausting to constantly choose between paying a bill and taking care of my mental health, between investing in the future and managing today's crises. But I'm not completely broken. Somehow, I find ways to cope, even if they're small and imperfect. I've started cooking more at home, learning to stretch $1 in the kitchen. I cut subscriptions, canceled memberships, and try to find free or low-cost entertainment. Sometimes I vent to friends who understand, or write it all down to get the weight off my chest. There's comfort in those little moments, even if they don't solve the bigger problem. And I keep reminding myself that this isn't the end of the story. Deep down, I still hold on to hope, fragile but persistent. I dream of a time when money isn't a constant source of stress, when I can afford to say yes to experiences, to rest without guilt, to feel secure in my own life. I want to believe that the hard work will pay off, that the system will change, or maybe I'll find a way to change my own circumstances. But until then, I live in this tension, between the harsh realities of today and the quiet promise of tomorrow. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that this pressure shapes you in unexpected ways. It makes you resourceful, it teaches resilience, but it also wears you down. Being trapped in a system where expenses race ahead of income feels like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, no matter how fast you move. It's not just about money, it's about feeling stuck in a life you worked hard to build but can't fully live. And the hardest part? Not losing sight of yourself in the struggle. So here I am, still pushing forward, still hoping, still trying to carve out a life that feels whole. It's not the story I imagined, but it's mine, honest, vulnerable, and real. And maybe that's enough for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, barely keeping my head above the relentless tide of bills, rent, and groceries. I'm 27, working full-time, and yet the weight of financial pressure is like a constant, quiet storm that never quite lets up. It's not just about numbers or budgets, it's about how this invisible force shapes every choice I make, chips away at my confidence, and dims the future I once imagined so clearly. I remember when I first started earning my own money. Fresh out of college, there was this rush of freedom, like the whole world was suddenly open to me. I'd dreamed of traveling, maybe taking a break to write, or even just saving up to move into a nicer place. But that was before inflation started to skyrocket and my paycheck barely kept pace. I learned quickly that my income wasn't a growing river, it was more like a stagnant pond, while expenses ballooned around me like wild vines, squeezing tighter every month. Every morning, I sit down with my coffee and open my banking app, bracing myself. I don't want to be that person who's always stressed about money, but it's hard not to be when you see your balance shrink after every swipe of the card or automatic payment. Rent alone takes nearly half of what I earn, and then there's utilities, insurance, phone bills, groceries, which somehow get more expensive every week, and student loans that seem like a shadow hanging over me. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm just running in place, pouring energy into work that never actually gives me more breathing room. What gets me the most is the feeling of being trapped. I'm working harder, sometimes taking on side gigs just to cover small emergencies, but it never feels like enough. The system is this giant machine, and I'm just a cog that spins faster but never moves forward. I don't know how to break free because the cost of living keeps rising faster than any raises or promotions I get. It's like climbing a hill that gets steeper with every step. I've had to postpone so many things that used to feel like basic parts of life or milestones. A proper vacation? Forget it. Even a night out with friends has to be rationed carefully because every dollar counts. I put off buying a new laptop that could help me with work, telling myself the old one will hold out a little longer. I don't go to the doctor as often as I should because the copays sting. Sometimes, when my phone battery dies and I can't afford a new one yet, I just stare at it, frustrated and helpless. The emotional toll is heavy. There's this underlying current of anxiety that hums in the background of every day. It's not just stress about today or tomorrow, it's this gnawing uncertainty about whether I'll ever get to breathe easy. I find myself getting angry sometimes, not at anyone in particular, but at the system that keeps moving the goalposts further away. And then there's guilt. Guilt for wanting more when I see others struggling worse, guilt for not being able to save or give back like I hoped I would, guilt for small indulgences that feel like luxuries. At night, when the world quiets down, I let myself be vulnerable. I think about the dreams I had, starting a small business, maybe writing a novel, traveling to places I'd never seen. Those dreams feel distant now, like stars I can see but can't quite reach. But I still hold on to them, because giving up would mean admitting defeat. Sometimes I write little notes to myself, reminders that this is temporary, that I'm stronger than this pressure, and that maybe one day the scales will tip in my favor. Coping isn't easy. I've learned to stretch every dollar, to find joy in small things, like a walk in the park, cooking a new recipe at home, or binge-watching a series I love. I talk openly with close friends who understand, and that helps. Sometimes, I journal, pouring out my frustrations and hopes onto paper. Other times, I just breathe, practicing mindfulness to quiet the chaos in my head. And slowly, I try to build resilience, even if it's just one small step at a time. There's no simple solution. I know I'm not alone, so many young adults feel the squeeze, this constant balancing act. But acknowledging it, naming the struggle, is a step toward reclaiming some power. I'm still here, still trying, still dreaming. And even though the path is foggy right now, I hold on to the hope that with patience and perseverance, I'll find a way forward, one day, one moment at a time. That's my story, a young adult caught in the grind, trying to survive a system that often feels rigged, but refusing to lose sight of the life I want to build. I never thought I'd be this tired so young. It's a kind of exhaustion that runs deeper than just physical fatigue. It settles into your bones and makes every morning feel like a negotiation between hope and reality. I'm 27, working a job that's supposed to pay the bills, but it barely covers the basics anymore. And it feels like I'm trapped in this never-ending loop. Prices climb, my paycheck stays the same, and the gap widens just enough every month to remind me that I'm behind. Again. I remember when I first got out of college. I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, maybe take a road trip across the country, learn to play guitar properly, start saving for a little place of my own. But reality hit faster than I was ready for. Rent in my city kept climbing, faster than my hourly wage ever could. Utilities, groceries, healthcare, all these essentials that should be simple became mountains to climb. Sometimes I'd catch myself scrolling through social media, watching friends post about trips, new cars, even engagement rings, and wonder if I'd made a mistake choosing this path. Not because I wanted the same things they had, but because I wondered if I'd ever have the freedom to even think about them without feeling weighed down. The pressure is relentless. Every decision feels heavy, like it's balancing on the edge of some invisible cliff. Should I buy a $5 coffee and feel a moment of joy, or save that money for an unexpected expense? Should I skip the doctor's appointment because it's another bill I can't afford, even if I don't feel great? Do I order takeout because I'm too exhausted to cook, or do I stare at the fridge and eat the same dry noodles for the third day straight? These aren't just small choices, they become a daily mental battle. You try to plan ahead, but the rising cost of living keeps crashing through every plan you make. There's this feeling that the system itself is working against me. The rent hikes come with no warning, the prices on food rise even when my paycheck doesn't. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I try to catch my breath. Bills pile up, and even with tight budgeting, I'm barely keeping my head above water. It's humiliating sometimes, the constant scramble to stay afloat, to explain to family and friends why I can't join them for a weekend out or why I'm always the last to respond to invitations. Emotionally, it's draining. The weight of financial insecurity creeps into everything, my mood, my confidence, even my relationships. I find myself snapping over little things, or retreating when I should be reaching out. There's a shame in admitting you're struggling when everyone else seems to be moving forward. It's like I'm stuck in this invisible bubble of stress and worry, watching life happen around me but unable to step fully into it. To cope, I've learned to find small pockets of control. Journaling helps, a place to dump the worry so it doesn't swirl endlessly in my head. I try to remind myself that this isn't permanent, that this phase is just a rough patch and not my whole story. I've gotten really good at finding free or cheap joys, like library books, long walks, or cooking simple meals from scratch. But even those small pleasures are tinged with the background noise of money anxiety, like a quiet hum I can't turn off. I've had to postpone dreams that once felt so certain. I'm holding off on moving out on my own, knowing the rent will swallow any extra income. I've shelved plans to save for graduate school because right now, paying rent and groceries is a full-time job in itself. Travel, which once seemed like a right, now feels like a luxury I can't justify. Every time I think about the future, it's a mix of hope and a nagging fear that the rising expenses will keep pushing my goals further away. But despite it all, I'm still here, still trying. I hold on to the hope that something will shift, that I'll find a better job, that wages will catch up, or that some unexpected break will give me a chance to breathe and rebuild. Sometimes I imagine what it would feel like to not constantly watch every dollar, to say yes without hesitation, to dream without the weight of worry. Those moments keep me going. It's hard to explain this feeling without sounding like a broken record or like I'm just complaining. But this is real, and it's more common than we admit. The financial pressure doesn't just impact bank accounts, it touches every part of a person's life. And it's lonely to live in a system that seems designed to wear you down, to outpace your income, to keep you just on the edge. Still, I hold on to the small victories, the months where I managed to save a little, the moments where I laugh with friends despite the stress, the nights where sleep finally comes easy. I remind myself that my worth isn't defined by my bank balance, even though it feels like it sometimes. I'm learning to be patient with myself, to recognize the strength in just surviving, and to keep believing that better days are possible. Because if there's one thing I've learned from living in this pressure cooker, it's this: hope is the thing I have to guard the most fiercely. It's what makes the struggle bearable and keeps me moving forward, one day at a time. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. Like every step forward I take is met with some invisible force pushing me 2 steps back. It's this exhausting tug-of-war with money that never seems to loosen its grip. I want to say it's just a phase, but the truth is, I don't see a clear end to it. The bills pile up faster than my paycheck, and every month, I'm caught in this relentless cycle of stretching what little I have to cover essentials, hoping to not miss a payment or dip further into debt. Some mornings, I wake up with this sinking feeling in my chest. It's that tight knot of anxiety that settles before I even get out of bed. I run through my mental checklist: rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill, gas for my car, and if I'm lucky, a little bit left over for unexpected expenses or maybe a treat. But the numbers never add up in my favor. Rent alone gobbles up more than half of what I make, and everything else, food, transportation, basic hygiene products, just chips away at the rest. And then there are the little things I don't always think about until they pop up: a surprise doctor's visit, a busted phone screen, or my car needing a tune-up. Suddenly, the fragile balance I managed to keep is shattered, and I have to decide what to sacrifice. It's frustrating because I work hard. I clock in over 40 hours a week, sometimes more, at a job that doesn't exactly light me up but pays the bills. Still, the paycheck barely feels like enough. I hear people talk about saving, investing, or building credit, but for me, those words feel like luxuries reserved for someone else's life. I try not to envy those who seem to glide through adulthood with financial ease. Instead, I bury those feelings and focus on what I can control. Budgeting obsessively, clipping coupons, meal prepping to avoid eating out, small battles I fight daily. But the reality is, no matter how careful I am, the cost of living keeps climbing, and my income stays flat. There are days when it feels like I'm trapped in a system designed to keep me just barely afloat. I see the headlines about inflation, rising rent prices, and stagnant wages, and it feels personal, like these aren't just abstract economic terms but an ongoing assault on my dignity and dreams. I remember when I first moved out on my own, fresh out of college, full of hope and plans. I wanted to travel, maybe take a class for fun, or even start a small side business. Now, those ideas seem like distant echoes, luxuries I've had to shelve indefinitely. I'm constantly reminding myself that this is temporary, but with no clear timeline, that reassurance wears thin. The emotional toll is hard to overstate. It's not just the stress of managing money, it's the creeping loneliness that comes with feeling like you can't fully participate in life. Friends invite me out, but I often decline, worried about the cost of dinner or drinks. Social media doesn't help either. Everyone's curated highlight reels showing vacations, new gadgets, or nights out make me feel even more isolated. Sometimes, I wonder if my friends even realize how much I'm struggling. I keep my worries to myself because I don't want to be a burden, or worse, judged. There's a shame that sticks with financial stress, a sense that I'm failing at something fundamental, even when I'm doing everything I can. To cope, I found small pockets of relief in unexpected places. Late-night walks when the city is quiet, listening to music that helps me escape for a bit, or journaling my thoughts. Writing this down, being honest about it, sometimes feels like the only way to breathe when everything else feels suffocating. I also remind myself that money doesn't define my worth, even though the world often seems to say otherwise. I try to find meaning in the little victories, like paying off a small debt or sticking to my budget for a month. These moments, however small, help me hold on to hope. Hope is complicated. I still dream of financial stability, of waking up without that weight pressing down on my chest. I want to imagine a future where I can afford a comfortable apartment, save for emergencies, maybe even buy a home someday. More than anything, I want the freedom to make choices without being shackled by money, whether it's taking a career risk, going back to school, or traveling somewhere new. But those dreams come with a heavy dose of realism. I've had to postpone buying a car, delay grad school applications, and put off investing in myself in ways I know could change my trajectory. It hurts to admit that necessity forced those decisions, but it also fuels my determination. I want to break free, even if it's one small step at a time. Sometimes, I wonder what would happen if the economic tide shifted even slightly in my favor, if wages grew faster than inflation or housing became affordable again. Would that be enough to make a real difference, or is the system just too broken? For now, I focus on the things I can control, continuing to work hard, seeking out opportunities for growth, and finding strength in the support of friends and family, even if I don't always share everything. It's a slow grind, and some days the weight feels unbearable, but I keep reminding myself that this struggle doesn't define my entire story. In the end, I'm learning to be gentle with myself. This isn't a failure, it's just a hard chapter in a longer journey. I don't have all the answers yet, and some days I feel lost, but I refuse to give up on the life I want. One day, I hope to look back on this time not as a trap, but as the fire that forged my resilience. Until then, I keep going, one paycheck, one bill, and one small victory at a time. I never thought money would feel like a cage. When I was a kid, I imagined that by the time I was my age, 26, I'd have this sense of freedom, maybe even a little security. Instead, every month feels like a test I'm barely passing, where the rules keep changing, and the goalposts move farther away. The world around me races ahead with rising prices, but my paycheck somehow stays stuck, like it's tethered to a rock at the bottom of a riverbed while everything else flows upstream. I wake up each morning with this dull ache in my chest, the kind of anxiety that isn't sharp enough to be panic, but heavy enough to weigh down every thought. The first thing I do is check my bank balance, even though I already know it won't look any better than yesterday. Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about what will happen if I lose my job, or if the rent goes up again. Those worries sneak into my dreams, twisting them into restless knots. Everything costs more now. Groceries, rent, gas, utilities, even the little things that used to feel like treats now feel like luxuries. I remember the last time I bought a decent meal out with friends. It was months ago. Since then, I've cooked mostly from cheap ingredients, sticking to whatever's on sale. I'm not proud of being so careful, but I've learned that every dollar counts, and wasting money feels like throwing a part of myself away. It's strange how the things I used to enjoy now seem like burdens. I miss the spontaneity of choosing to spend without calculating, but I can't justify it anymore. I'm stuck in this rhythm of work, bills, and saving whatever little I can, but it never feels like enough. I look at my paycheck, and after rent and bills, what's left barely touches my other expenses. Sometimes, I think about side gigs or extra hours, but the exhaustion that settles into my bones by the end of the day is a reminder that I'm already stretched thin. More work means less rest, less time with the few people I care about, less chance to just breathe. There's this constant pressure, like the system is designed to keep me running on a treadmill, faster and faster just to stay in the same place. Inflation creeps up, and with it, my costs, but my income doesn't budge much. It's a cruel kind of arithmetic. No matter how hard I try, my purchasing power shrinks. I see news about the economy, about how things are improving or how interest rates might drop, but it feels like those stories are written for someone else's life, not mine. The financial strain is not just about money. It's about what I've had to give up. I put off dreams, buying a car, moving out on my own, traveling, even thinking about saving for a future that feels uncertain. Every plan feels tentative, like building a house on sand. I want to believe things will get better, but that hope is fragile. Sometimes I wonder if I'm alone in feeling this way, or if everyone around me is just better at hiding it. My mental health suffers quietly. I hide my worries from friends and family because I don't want to be a burden or sound like I'm complaining. But inside, there's this gnawing guilt for not doing better, for not having a more stable life, for feeling overwhelmed. I keep telling myself to be grateful for what I have, but gratitude is complicated when every day feels like a balancing act over an abyss. I try to cope in small ways. I meditate sometimes, even though my mind races too much. I write in a journal, pouring out these feelings that I can't say out loud. I find solace in simple things: a walk in the park, a good book, a call with a friend who understands. These moments remind me that I'm more than my financial struggles, even if it doesn't change the numbers. Looking forward, I cling to the smallest sparks of hope. Maybe I'll finish a certification to get a better job. Maybe someday I'll have enough saved to move somewhere cheaper or safer. Maybe inflation will slow, or wages will finally catch up. I dream of a life where I don't have to count every cent, where I can invest in myself instead of just surviving. But those dreams feel distant, like a horizon I'm always chasing but never reaching. For now, I take it day by day. I keep moving, even if it's just one small step at a time. I remind myself that this doesn't define me, even if it feels like the whole world is telling me otherwise. I want to believe that beyond this pressure, beyond this exhaustion, there's something better waiting. Until then, I'll hold on to those quiet hopes, even when the weight of the system feels unbearable. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm just treading water in a storm that never eases up. Every morning, I wake up knowing the same relentless pressure awaits: bills piling higher, income barely stretching, and the gnawing question of how I'm supposed to build a future when the present is already drowning me. It's not like I haven't tried. I graduated college hopeful, carrying dreams that seemed so tangible back then. I wanted to travel, maybe start my own business, or even just save enough to move out of the cramped apartment I share with my younger sister. But somewhere along the way, those dreams started feeling like fragile glass, beautiful but impossible to hold without breaking. The world I live in right now is defined by an economy that seems rigged against people like me, where prices soar every month and wages crawl forward in comparison. I work full-time, often more than 40 hours a week, and sometimes I pick up side gigs when I can. But no matter how many hours I clock, I'm always watching my bank balance like a hawk, calculating every expense twice. Rent takes nearly half my paycheck, and utilities, groceries, transportation, they all add up in a way that leaves me gasping by the end of each cycle. I'm not exaggerating when I say that sometimes I have to decide between eating properly or keeping the lights on. It's this constant balancing act that wears me down the most. The stress isn't just about money, it's about feeling powerless. Like I'm stuck in a system where costs climb faster than my paycheck, and the finish line keeps moving farther away. I remember reading about inflation, and now I live it. I see it in every trip to the grocery store when I reach for the same things I used to buy and find they cost more now, sometimes double. I try to be smart, buying generic brands, cooking at home, cutting out anything non-essential, but the essentials themselves are becoming luxuries. Social life? That feels like a luxury, too. I don't go out as much anymore, not because I don't want to, but because it feels irresponsible. My friends invite me to dinners, concerts, or just a casual night out, but every time I hesitate. The cost of a night out, plus transportation, a drink, or even a small tip, adds up, and that's money I can't afford to lose. I don't want to be the friend who's always saying no or explaining why I can't join. It hurts. It feels isolating. But the fear of slipping further into debt is real and tangible. Debt. That word feels like a shadow that follows me everywhere. Student loans, credit card bills, the emergency car repair last year, it's a chain around my neck, dragging me down. Every month, I allocate a portion of my income to paying down these debts, but the minimum payments barely make a dent. It's frustrating to see interest charges build up faster than I can repay, making it feel like I'm running a race where the track keeps getting longer. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if I'll ever catch a break. If I'll ever be able to save enough for a small place of my own or start putting money aside for retirement, two things that once seemed like eventual milestones. Instead, I'm just trying to survive month to month, hoping nothing unexpected happens: a medical bill, a car problem, a family emergency. I'm always on edge, knowing it could all spiral quickly. Emotionally, this constant pressure is exhausting. There's a shame that comes with feeling like you're barely keeping it together while everyone else around you seems to move forward. I don't talk about money much with friends or family, mostly because I don't want to burden them or sound like I'm complaining. But the loneliness it breeds is real. It's hard to share feelings that are so tied to fear and insecurity. Sometimes I wonder if they understand, or if they even want to. To cope, I've developed small rituals that help me hold on. Journaling is one. Writing down how I feel helps me process the anxiety instead of letting it fester. I also try to celebrate tiny wins, finally paying off a small debt, finding a great deal at the store, or even just getting through a tough week without falling behind. These moments remind me that I'm not completely stuck, even if progress feels slow. I also hold on to hope, fragile as it is. Hope that things will get better, even if it's not soon. I dream of a day when I'm not constantly worried about money, that I can finally afford to travel and see the world, or maybe take a course just because I want to learn something new, not because it might improve my paycheck. I dream of having a little garden or a cozy home where I don't have to count pennies. Most of all, I dream of financial freedom, not the kind that requires extravagance, but simply the ability to breathe without the weight of money pressing down. Sometimes, though, I feel trapped. Like I'm caught in a loop where every expense tightens the grip, and every pay raise gets swallowed up by rising costs. I know that the system isn't designed to help people like me. It's built to keep us running just fast enough to survive, but never fast enough to thrive. It's a cruel game that feels impossible to win. I don't want pity or empty platitudes. I want understanding and honesty, both from myself and others. I want to acknowledge that this struggle is real and valid and that it shapes so much of how I live, how I think, and how I plan for the future. One day, I hope to look back on this time and see it as a chapter, not the whole story. Until then, I keep moving forward, one paycheck, one decision, one day at a time, trying to find light in the midst of uncertainty. I never imagined that money would be the thing chaining me down the most, but here I am, living proof that sometimes life just doesn't work out the way you hoped. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, the world has been telling me to just work hard and you'll get ahead. But the harder I work, the more I feel like I'm sinking in quicksand. It's like I'm stuck in this endless cycle where expenses balloon faster than my paycheck can stretch, and no matter what I do, I'm always scrambling just to keep my head above water. I remember when I first moved out on my own. I was excited, optimistic even. I found a tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Back then, rent was affordable, and my first job paid just enough to cover bills and still have a little for fun. I thought I was adulting like a pro. But then, almost overnight it seemed, prices started creeping up. Groceries cost more, the bus fare went up, my internet bill jumped, and suddenly that little extra for fun disappeared. Now, fun is a distant memory. Every day feels like a negotiation between my needs and the cold, hard facts of my bank account. Should I buy groceries or pay the electricity bill first? Do I really need a new pair of shoes, or can I just wear the ones I have until they fall apart? Sometimes I catch myself standing in the store, staring at the price tag on something as basic as a loaf of bread, and having to decide if I can justify spending that money or if I should put it back and go hungry for a little longer. It's humiliating and exhausting. This pressure has seeped into every part of my life. It's not just the money, it's the constant stress and anxiety that comes with knowing that one small emergency, like a broken phone or a flat tire, could send me spiraling. I don't have a cushion. No savings to fall back on. I can't remember the last time I felt truly secure. The weight of it crushes down on me in quiet moments, late at night, lying awake, heart pounding, wondering how I'll get through the next month. I have friends who talk about buying homes, traveling, or even just going out for a nice dinner without a second thought. And I'm happy for them, really I am. But it also stings because those are dreams I had once, too. I used to imagine owning a small place with a garden, adopting a dog, maybe starting a little side business doing something creative. Now those dreams feel like luxuries for other people, far away, like stars I can look at but never touch. Work hasn't made things easier. I've held a few jobs, retail, customer service, freelance gigs, anything I could get. But wages barely keep pace with inflation, and with the rising cost of living, raises never seem to come close to what I need. I've tried budgeting, cutting out extras, cooking at home, canceling subscriptions, and even picking up odd jobs on weekends. Still, I watch my money disappear faster than I can earn it. And every month, the gap between income and expenses feels like a chasm that's growing wider. Sometimes I think about just giving up, moving back in with my parents, going back to school, or finding a way to escape the city entirely. But those options come with their own hurdles. My family is barely getting by themselves, so I don't want to be a burden. School costs money and time I don't have. Leaving the city might save rent but would also mean fewer opportunities and more uncertainty. It's like being trapped in a web with no clear way out. To cope, I've developed a kind of armor, a numbness that dulls the panic just enough to keep going. I tell myself that this is temporary, that I'm doing my best, and someday things will improve. I lean on the little joys, a morning coffee I make at home, a walk in the park, a text from a friend who understands without judgment. But sometimes those small comforts feel like a band-aid on a broken bone. I'm scared of the future, and that fear gnaws at me in moments when I least expect it. One of the hardest parts is how isolating this feels. People don't always see the struggle because I try to keep it hidden, embarrassed to admit that I'm not making it like I should. There's a stigma around financial hardship, like it's a personal failure instead of a systemic issue that's crushing so many of us. I wish I could be more open about it, but I worry that people would think less of me or that I'd be judged for not handling it better. Still, I hold on to a flicker of hope. I remind myself that this isn't the whole story, that I'm more than my bank balance, and that even in this pressure cooker, there's space for growth and change. I dream of a day when I can breathe freely, when money isn't the monster lurking in the shadows of every decision. Maybe I'll go back to school someday, start a business, or find a career that pays what I deserve. Maybe I'll finally afford a small vacation, or a dinner out without worrying about the cost. Until then, I take it one day at a time. I try to celebrate the small victories, making rent on time, paying off a credit card balance, getting through a week without skipping meals. It's not the life I imagined, but it's the one I'm living, and for now, that has to be enough. Being caught in this economic squeeze is a daily test of endurance. It's a feeling of being trapped in a system that wasn't built for people like me, where the rules keep changing, and the deck is stacked against you. But beneath the exhaustion and frustration, there's a stubborn part of me that refuses to give up. I'm tired, yes. Scared, yes. But not defeated. I'm still here, still fighting, and still hoping for something better. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep going. It's hard to explain what it feels like to be caught in a place where everything you want to do, everything you need to do, feels just out of reach because the numbers don't add up. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been a source of constant tension, like a low hum in the background that sometimes gets so loud I can't think about anything else. It's not just about being broke now and then, it's about living every day with the feeling that no matter how hard I work, no matter how tight I hold my budget, the bills and expenses grow faster than my paycheck ever will. I graduated college 5 years ago, full of hope and plans. I had dreams, traveling, maybe buying a little place of my own someday, starting to save for retirement in my 20s, investing in myself, taking classes, learning new skills, building a life that felt solid and exciting. But the reality hit me almost immediately. My first full-time job paid barely enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and the occasional bus ticket. Every paycheck disappeared faster than I expected, and then I was scrambling for the next one. I remember sitting down one night, spreadsheet open, trying to find a way to squeeze a few more dollars out of the month. Cancel subscriptions, cook at home, skip social events, check, check, check. But somehow, the rent went up, the grocery prices crept higher, my phone bill was never forgiving, and car maintenance, which I couldn't avoid, sucked away the little cushion I managed to build. The economic environment feels like a storm I can't escape. Inflation, rising housing costs, stagnant wages, they're all terms I hear on the news or read online, but they're not just numbers to me. They're the reason I've had to say no so many times to invitations from friends, the reason I've lived with a broken washing machine for 6 months because fixing it feels like a luxury, the reason I panic every time I look at my bank account and see it dipping into the red. It's a system that feels rigged, like I'm on a treadmill running faster and faster just to stay in the same spot. What hurts the most is the way it drains your hope. I catch myself thinking, maybe this is just how it will be forever. And that thought is crushing. I'm tired of postponing dreams, traveling abroad, buying new clothes without guilt, saving up for a course that could advance my career, even something as simple as going out for dinner or a movie without counting every cent. It's not about extravagance. It's about the freedom to breathe without the constant pressure to pinch pennies and juggle priorities so tightly. Some days, the emotional toll feels unbearable. I lie awake at night worrying about the next rent payment, the mounting credit card balance, the ever-growing list of things that need fixing but can't wait. I feel the weight of this invisible chain around my ankles, slowing me down, sapping my energy. It's exhausting. Sometimes, I'm overwhelmed by shame that I can't get ahead, shame that I have to ask for help, shame that I'm not where I thought I'd be at this age. But I keep going. I cope the only way I know how, by trying to stay organized, by making small sacrifices that add up, by seeking out side gigs or freelance work when I can, by reaching out to friends when the loneliness of financial stress gets too heavy. I've learned to find little moments of joy, an afternoon walk, a good book from the library, cooking a favorite meal at home, that remind me life isn't just about money, even though money feels like it controls so much of it. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this, even if it often feels that way. So many people my age are fighting the same battle, juggling jobs, debt, and dreams deferred. Sometimes we share tips on budgeting apps or recipes for cheap meals, sometimes just vent about how unfair it all feels. Those connections help keep me grounded, reminding me that this struggle doesn't define me, even if it shapes my day-to-day. I still hold on to my dreams, even if they're on pause. I want to travel, see the world beyond the city where the rent is sky-high and the job market is brutal. I want to buy a place that's mine, where I don't have to worry about sudden rent hikes or landlords. I want to invest in my future, whether that means learning new skills, starting a side business, or even saving enough to feel a little secure in old age. These dreams keep me going, even on the toughest days when the bills stack up and the hope feels thin. Maybe one day, the system will change, or maybe I'll find a way to break free from this cycle. For now, I take it one day at a time, trying to be gentle with myself, knowing that surviving this economic pressure is a kind of strength in itself. It's not the story I imagined for myself, but it's the story I'm living. And in the midst of it all, I still believe there's something better waiting on the other side. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that hope, no matter how small, is worth holding on to. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I wake up every morning to the same sinking feeling, like I'm stuck in quicksand that only gets deeper as the day goes on. It's not just the tiredness from a poor night's sleep or the usual pressure of adulting. It's this constant, gnawing weight of financial strain that shadows every choice I make, every plan I try to hold on to. I'm 27, working full-time, trying to carve out a life in a world that feels like it's been built to squeeze every last cent from people like me. People who aren't born into privilege or cushy safety nets, but who still want the basics, stability, a little joy, maybe a future that doesn't feel like an endless uphill battle. The economy is this invisible beast looming over me. Prices keep climbing, rent, groceries, gas, everything that's necessary just keeps going up. Meanwhile, my paycheck stays stubbornly the same, or sometimes it even feels like it's shrinking when I factor in inflation. I keep a budget, meticulously tracking every dollar, but it's like trying to plug a leaking dam with my fingertips. The water, my expenses, just pour through faster than I can stop them. It's exhausting and demoralizing. Some days, I sit at my small kitchen table, staring at my bank app, trying to make sense of the numbers. Rent due, utilities, internet, phone, food, transportation, some savings for emergencies that never come, and the credit card debt I'm always juggling. I wonder how I ended up here, juggling bills like a circus performer with too many balls. And I realize I'm not alone, most of my friends are in the same boat. We talk about it in hushed tones, afraid to admit how deeply it affects us, afraid that if we do, we might confirm the truth we're all trying to deny, that we're trapped in a system that's designed to keep us scrambling. There's a kind of quiet desperation that comes with financial pressure. It's not always loud or dramatic. Often, it's just a low, persistent hum in the background of my life. I have dreams, big ones, but they feel farther away every day. I wanted to travel, to see new places, meet new people, and learn more about the world. I dreamed of going back to school someday, to finally finish that degree I dropped out of because I needed to start working. I wanted to save for a home, build something that was mine. But all those dreams have been postponed, shelved indefinitely while I fight to keep my head above water. The hardest part is how this pressure shapes my daily decisions. I skip meals sometimes, not because I'm hungry, but because I know I can't afford to eat out or buy extra groceries. I turn down invitations to hang out because even the small cost of a coffee or a movie ticket feels like a luxury I can't justify. I take on extra shifts, freelance gigs, anything I can find, but it's never enough to break the cycle. There's no room for spontaneity or fun, just survival. Emotionally, it wears me down. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, thinking about what would happen if I lost my job or got sick. The stress sometimes feels like it's eating away at my self-worth. It's hard not to internalize it, to feel like I'm failing somehow because I can't make it work better. I compare myself to others, people who seem to glide through life with ease, who don't have to stress over every bill. I try to remind myself that everyone has their struggles, but it's hard not to feel isolated. Sometimes, I get angry. Angry at the system that allows wages to stagnate while costs spiral. Angry at the politicians who talk about economic recovery but whose policies seem to leave people like me behind. Angry at myself for not having figured out some secret formula to escape this grind. But mostly, I feel tired. So tired. Despite all this, I still hold on to hope. It's fragile and flickering, but it's there. I remind myself that this period, no matter how hard, is temporary. That if I can just keep going, keep pushing through, maybe I can get to a place where money isn't a constant source of anxiety. Where I can stop postponing my dreams and start living them. I'm trying to find small moments of joy, like a walk in the park, a phone call with a friend, a quiet evening with a book, that remind me life isn't just about money. I've learned to cope in little ways. I meditate sometimes, to calm the storm inside my head. I journal, to get the fear and frustration out of me. I've started talking more openly with friends about money struggles, and that honesty has been a balm. It helps to know I'm not alone, that there are others fighting the same battle. We exchange tips, vent, and sometimes just listen. I'm also trying to reframe what success means. Maybe it's not about a big house or an expensive car. Maybe it's about security, peace, and freedom from the constant stress. I'm learning to celebrate small victories, making it through the month, paying off a little bit of debt, saving even a few dollars. But the truth remains, the system is broken. The way wages, costs, and opportunities are structured traps so many of us in a cycle that's incredibly hard to break. And that reality shapes my everyday experience in ways that are often invisible to the outside world. I'm doing my best to keep hope alive, but some days, the weight of it all is almost too much. Still, I'm here. I'm fighting. And I'm dreaming of a day when money isn't a chain but a tool, one that I control, not the other way around. I never thought I'd be here, stuck in this constant loop of barely scraping by, feeling like every step forward is matched by 2 steps back. It's weird how life was supposed to be so different when I was a kid. I had dreams, you know? Dreams about freedom, about building something meaningful, about finally feeling secure. But now, at 27, those dreams feel more like distant memories I have to tuck away every morning just to face the day. The reality is this: expenses keep climbing, but my paycheck barely moves. It's like I'm trapped in this invisible cage, and the bars are made of rising rent, endless bills, and the constant need to keep up appearances so I don't lose my last shred of dignity. Every time I open a letter or check my bank app, there's a pit in my stomach, another charge, another unexpected cost, another reminder that I'm treading water, and sinking at the same time. Take rent, for example. When I first moved into this tiny apartment, it felt like a stretch but manageable. Now? The landlord raised it again this year, and suddenly a big chunk of my income disappears just for a roof over my head. Utilities, groceries, transportation, it all adds up and leaves me wondering if I'll ever have anything left at the end of the month. The worst part is how unpredictable everything feels. Prices spike without warning. Medical bills, car repairs, the occasional emergency, there's no buffer, no cushion. Just stress. I try to be smart with my money. I clip coupons, cook at home instead of eating out, avoid social events that cost money, even though I'm starving for connection. But there's only so much you can cut before it feels like you're cutting away pieces of yourself. Like, when I say no to hanging out because I can't afford a coffee or a ride, I'm also saying no to friendship, to fun, to the little joys that keep you sane. And the emotional toll? It's crushing. Sometimes I lie awake at night, heart pounding, trying to figure out how I'll pay the next bill, if I'll make rent, or if I'll have to borrow money again. There's a helplessness that creeps in, like I'm watching my life through a glass window but can't reach out and grab control. It's exhausting to keep pretending everything's fine when inside, you're scrambling to stay afloat. I don't talk about it much because there's a stigma around financial struggles. People expect you to have it together, to be independent, to adult like it's supposed to be easy. But it's not. I feel shame sometimes, like I've failed somehow, even though I work hard, 2 jobs, odd shifts, side gigs that barely add up. I'm tired. Tired of the anxiety, the constant planning and replanning, the feeling of being stuck in a system that seems rigged against people like me. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I wanted to travel, to go back to school, to save for a down payment on a home one day. Instead, I'm saving pennies just to cover emergencies, if that. I envy people who can plan vacations or buy new things without guilt or panic. Sometimes I wonder if they even realize how lucky they are. Yet, despite everything, I hold on to hope. It's fragile, but it's there. I remind myself that this isn't forever, even though it often feels like it. I try to focus on small wins, making it through the month, paying off a credit card bit by bit, treating myself to a cheap but meaningful little pleasure like a favorite song or a quiet walk. Those moments keep me going. I also try to reach out when I can, even if it's hard. Talking about money struggles feels taboo, but it's helped to hear other stories, to know I'm not alone. Sometimes vulnerability is a lifeline. This life, this grind, it shapes who I am. I'm learning resilience, patience, and how to find joy in small things. But I won't lie, I'm tired of surviving. I want to live. I want to break free from this invisible cage and finally breathe without the weight of money dragging me down. Maybe someday, I will. Until then, I keep moving forward, day by day, dollar by dollar, hoping the future will be kinder. Because deep down, beneath the exhaustion and fear, I still believe in the possibility of better. And that belief, fragile as it is what keeps me going. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to live with this kind of financial pressure every single day, but I'm going to try, because maybe someone else out there feels the same way, and maybe they need to hear it too. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been a constant weight around my neck. Not the kind you can shrug off or ignore, more like an invisible chain, tightening just a little bit more with every month that passes. I work full-time and I do okay on paper, but the reality is, my paycheck disappears faster than I can blink. Rent, utilities, groceries, student loans, car payments, insurance, it's like a checklist of bills that I know I'll never fully catch up on, no matter how hard I try. Every day, I wake up and wonder if today will be the day I finally figure out how to get ahead. But the numbers never lie, prices keep rising, faster than my salary, and that gap grows wider and wider. Last year, my rent went up by 10%. The grocery bill keeps creeping higher because everything, meat, vegetables, even bread, has gone up. Even small things feel like luxuries now. Want to grab coffee with a friend? That's $5 I don't have. Need a new pair of shoes because the old ones are falling apart. Better hold off until next paycheck. The economic environment feels like this cold, unfeeling machine that just churns on, indifferent to people like me who are barely holding on. I see news stories about inflation and interest rates and stimulus packages, but none of that filters down to my reality. I don't feel the relief, I only feel the pressure. I feel stuck. Trapped in a system where expenses keep growing faster than my income, where every decision is a trade-off, a gamble on which need can wait and which can't. I've had to make choices I never imagined I'd have to make, like skipping doctor's appointments because the copay is too high, or holding back on eating properly so I don't run out of money before the month ends. Sometimes I count out change just to buy a can of soup or a bus ticket. There's a constant, gnawing anxiety that settles in my chest, a fear that if I relax for even a moment, I'll slip further behind and never catch up. I don't say this to sound dramatic or to get sympathy. I say it because this is what life looks like for a lot of people my age, people who are told we're young and full of potential, but in reality are exhausted and stretched thin, fighting just to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. I try to cope the best I can. I've learned to budget obsessively, tracking every dollar and cutting out anything that isn't absolutely necessary. I've taken on side gigs, Uber driving, freelance gigs, anything that can bring in some extra cash. But even then, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, the finish line stays out of reach. Emotionally, it's draining. I try to put on a brave face for friends and family, but inside I feel worn down. Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness. It's hard not to feel defeated when it seems like the deck is stacked against you from the start. I want to believe things will get better, but the future feels hazy, uncertain. There are dreams I've had to put on hold. I once imagined saving up to travel, to see new places, meet new people, experience life outside this bubble of financial stress. I wanted to go back to school someday, maybe get a master's degree, but the cost is astronomical and the debt feels like a trap. I dreamed of buying my own place one day, but that dream seems so far away it might as well be on another planet. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live without this constant worry. To not have to choose between paying rent or fixing my car. To not have to scramble for every extra dollar. To breathe without that tight knot in my stomach. It's a simple thing, but it feels like a luxury I can't afford. And yet, despite it all, I still hold on to hope. I hold on to the small victories, getting through a month without missing a payment, finding joy in a quiet evening at home, connecting with friends who remind me that I'm not alone. I remind myself that this isn't the whole story, that my worth isn't defined by my bank balance, and that someday, somehow, things can change. For now, I take it one day at a time. I keep going because what else can I do? Because even in the darkest moments, the idea of giving up feels worse than the struggle itself. And maybe that's what resilience looks like, not the absence of hardship, but the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path is steep and the load is heavy. This is my reality, raw and unvarnished. It's not glamorous, and it's not easy. But it's mine. And sharing it, honestly and openly, feels like a small act of defiance against a system that wants to keep me silent and invisible. So here I am, saying it out loud, I'm tired, I'm scared, but I'm still here. Still hoping. Still dreaming. Still trying. I never thought I'd find myself stuck in this endless cycle, like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, no matter how hard I try to slow it down. Every month feels like a tightrope walk, balancing bills, rent, groceries, and those little emergencies that seem to pop up out of nowhere. And yet, my paycheck stays the same. Or worse, it sometimes feels like it's shrinking when I look at all the prices creeping up around me. It's strange because I'm not someone who was always broke growing up. I had dreams, plans, the usual I'll get a good job, move out, start building my life kind of ambitions. But somewhere along the way, reality crept in, and it's been suffocating. The cost of living has become this invisible monster that drains every bit of energy and optimism I once had. I watch the news, see the economy shifting, rent hikes, inflation numbers, and it feels like the entire system is designed to keep me just barely afloat, never quite able to break free. Most days, my brain is stuck on the how. How do I pay for rent this month? How do I keep the lights on? How do I stretch what little I have to cover food without sacrificing nutrition or quality? It's exhausting, but it's my daily grind. I've learned to become hyper-aware of every dollar I spend. There's a constant mental ledger: should I buy the generic brand or splurge on the name brand because it lasts longer? Do I cook meals at home or risk the occasional fast food to save time and stress? These decisions don't sound like much, but when you're juggling pennies, they're monumental. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays just enough to cover basics with maybe a few dollars left over, sometimes none at all. And when a surprise expense hits, like my phone breaking or a car repair, it throws everything off balance. It's like a Jenga tower where one wrong move could topple the whole thing. And honestly, some nights I lay awake, wondering if I'm just not good enough or if the system is rigged against people like me. It's hard not to feel invisible in a world that celebrates wealth and consumption. There's a deep loneliness that comes with this too. I don't go out much anymore, not because I don't want to, but because I can't afford to. The cost of a night out, even just a coffee with friends, feels like an indulgence I have to deny myself. Social invitations sometimes feel like a reminder of what I'm missing or what I can't keep up with. I worry about how people see me, like maybe they think I'm cheap or boring, but the truth is, I'm just trying to survive. Some days, I snap. The pressure feels so heavy that I want to scream or break down. But I don't. I tuck those feelings away because there's no room for vulnerability when you're fighting to stay afloat. Instead, I find little ways to cope: watching old TV shows, writing in a journal, or going for a walk in the park. It's not much, but it's what I have. I remind myself to breathe and to take things one day at a time. Looking back, I've had to put so many dreams on hold. I wanted to travel, to pursue a hobby, to maybe go back to school or save for a place of my own. Instead, I'm stuck with just making it. It's painful to admit how much I've let go of because survival takes all the mental space. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get to those dreams or if they're just illusions I'm chasing. The hope is still there, fragile but persistent, like a flickering candle in a storm. I want better, not just for me, but for people like me who work hard and still feel trapped. I want a future where my income grows with the cost of living, where rent isn't a constant source of anxiety, where I don't have to sacrifice basic dignity for survival. But that future feels distant. Right now, I'm just trying to hold on, find small moments of peace in the chaos, and remind myself that I'm more than my bank account or my struggles. I'm not alone in this, even though it often feels that way. There are so many of us caught in this economic squeeze, hoping for change, hoping for relief. And maybe someday, that hope will be enough to push me forward. Until then, I keep waking up, doing what I have to do, and trying to believe in a better tomorrow, even when today feels overwhelming. I never thought I'd be this tired before 30. Not just physically tired, but that deep, bone-weary kind of exhaustion that settles in when you feel like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up no matter how fast you push. That's what living under this constant financial pressure feels like trying to sprint while stuck in quicksand. I graduated college with a decent degree, the kind you hope will give you a leg up, a chance at a stable life. But now, as a 27-year-old, I'm caught in a loop where my expenses grow faster than my paycheck, and the dream of catching up feels more distant every month. Rent keeps climbing, every year, a little more than the last. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they all add up, like tiny leaks in a bucket that no matter how much water you pour in, never quite fills. I live paycheck to paycheck. It's a phrase I used to hear from others with a mix of sympathy and disbelief, thinking, that'll never be me, but it is. Every month, I map out a budget with military precision, cutting corners wherever possible. I skip the coffee shop treats, cook meals that are less than exciting, avoid social events because even a night out means spending more than I can comfortably afford. My friends invite me to dinners or weekend trips, and I smile and say no, even though inside, it hurts more than I let on. There's a loneliness that grows with that, like being on the outside looking in, watching life move forward without you. Bills arrive like clockwork. Medical copays, credit card minimums, student loans that never seem to shrink, car insurance, phone bills. Every one of them feels like a weight pushing down harder and harder. I've had to postpone dreams because of it. That trip to Europe I saved for in college? The one-day plan keeps slipping further away. I once dreamed of moving to a new city for a fresh start, or even buying a home someday. Now, the idea of a down payment feels like a fantasy from a different life, not my reality. The economic environment doesn't help. Inflation hits everything. Groceries that were affordable last year are suddenly a stretch. Gas prices soar unpredictably. And despite my employer's occasional raises, my income just doesn't keep pace. It's like I'm on a boat being slowly pulled backward by a current stronger than my paddling. I want to get ahead, but I can barely stay afloat. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's the anxiety that creeps in every time I check my bank balance, the knot in my stomach when an unexpected expense pops up. I lie awake at night calculating if I have enough to cover the month's essentials, wondering what I'll have to sacrifice next. The shame is hard to shake, the feeling that somehow, I'm failing at being an adult, at managing my life. It's a silent burden, because no one wants to admit they're struggling, especially when you compare yourself to others who seem to have it together. Coping with this pressure means learning to find small pockets of peace in an otherwise overwhelming reality. I've started journaling, putting my thoughts on paper to unburden my mind. I've joined online communities where people share stories like mine, and that connection reminds me I'm not alone in this. I find solace in simple things, long walks, reading books borrowed from the library, or practicing mindfulness to quiet the relentless stress. I also keep dreaming, even if those dreams have had to change shape. Maybe I won't take that big trip next year, but I can start saving a little every month for something, anything, that makes me feel like I'm moving forward. Maybe I won't buy a house anytime soon, but I can work on building skills that might help me get a better job in the future. My dreams have become more about survival and progress, about finding footholds rather than leaping forward. Most days, I feel trapped in a system designed to keep people like me running but never quite breaking free. It's a system where expenses climb relentlessly, and wages barely budge. The disparity is glaring, and it's exhausting to fight against a tide that's so much stronger than my individual effort. Yet, I hold on to hope, fragile but persistent, that things can get better. That somehow, through patience, grit, and maybe a bit of luck, I'll find a way out of this cycle. For now, I keep moving forward, one paycheck, one choice, one small victory at a time. It's not the life I imagined when I was younger, but it's mine. And maybe that's enough for now. This is my story, honest, vulnerable, and real. Sometimes it feels like I'm drowning, but instead of water, it's this endless flood of bills and expenses pulling me under. Every month, I tell myself, maybe this time will be different. Maybe this paycheck will stretch farther. But it never does. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same place, barely keeping my head above water. I'm 26, and I've been working full-time for a few years now. Not because I love my job, I don't. Not because it pays well, it doesn't. But because I have to. Rent in the city is sky high, groceries aren't getting any cheaper, and on top of that, there's the car payment, insurance, student loans, and the ever-growing list of unexpected expenses that show up out of nowhere like some cruel joke. Every time I think I can save a little, something comes up, a broken phone screen, a medical bill, or just the fact that prices at the gas pump climbed again this week. It feels like the whole system is designed to keep people like me trapped. The hardest part isn't even the money, it's the mental weight. There's this constant, gnawing anxiety that sits in the pit of my stomach. When I wake up in the morning, my first thought isn't about the day ahead or anything exciting, it's about how I'm going to make it through another month without falling behind. I check my bank account obsessively, as if staring at those numbers long enough will somehow make them grow. But they don't. They stay stubbornly low, while my expenses grow faster than I ever imagined they would. I've had to give up so many dreams. I used to want to travel, to see the world outside this cramped apartment and these gray city streets. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a degree that would actually let me make a decent living, not just scrape by. I thought I'd be able to save for a place of my own one day, a little space where I could feel safe and stable. But all of that feels so far away now, like some fantasy from a life that belongs to someone else. Sometimes I try to picture what freedom would look like. Would it be a day without the panic of counting every cent? A weekend spent with friends without the looming thought of how much that night out will cost? Or maybe it's just having enough to cover unexpected expenses without falling apart. But those days feel rare, and when they come, they're quickly swallowed by the next wave of bills. I cope the best way I know how. I try to hold on to small joys. A cup of coffee with a friend, even if it means skipping lunch, a walk in the park when the weather's nice, binge-watching shows that take me away from this pressure, even if just for a few hours. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even if it feels that way. So many people are in the same boat, working hard but never quite catching up. I've learned to be resourceful, to stretch every dollar as far as it will go, but it's exhausting. It's not just about making choices, it's about surviving. Choosing between filling the gas tank or buying groceries, between paying a bill on time or skipping the doctor's appointment, between pushing my dreams to the back burner or letting hope quietly slip away. Every decision feels heavy. I hate that this is the story I'm living right now, but I also know it's only one chapter. I still have hope, even if it's fragile. I dream about a day when I can breathe easier, when I'm not constantly fighting an uphill battle against rising costs and stagnant wages. Maybe someday I'll look back on this time and see how strong I became because of it, not just how trapped I felt. Until then, I keep moving forward, one paycheck, one bill, one small moment of peace at a time. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who counts every penny, who wakes up anxious about bills before the day even begins. But here I am, in my mid-20s, feeling like I'm running on a hamster wheel that's speeding up while my legs grow weaker. The pressure isn't just a vague background stress, it's a constant weight that shapes everything I do, think, and dream about. The economy, or what they call it, feels like this invisible storm swirling around me, relentless and unforgiving. Prices on groceries, rent, utilities, they climb steadily, almost like they have their own agenda, and my income just drags behind, limping after them. I have a decent job, or at least I thought so, but after taxes and deductions, the paycheck that hits my bank account doesn't stretch nearly as far as I wish it did. Every month, the math is the same, bills first, then food, then the barest scraps of what I call discretionary spending. And even that gets eaten up quickly by things I didn't plan for, a busted phone screen, a prescription, or the car needing a tire change. Some mornings, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if this pressure will ever ease up. I try not to think about the future too much because it feels like a mirage, distant and unreal. There was a time when I imagined traveling, moving out of this cramped apartment into a place that felt like home, or even going back to school to finish the degree I had to pause when money ran out. Now, those dreams seem suspended, locked away in a dusty box I keep telling myself I'll open someday. But someday feels like a cruel joke when every day is a fight just to make ends meet. The strangest part is how this economic reality changes the way I see myself and the world around me. I remember being excited about the future, feeling like I had endless possibilities. Now, every decision feels strategic, calculated, and often limited by money. I can't just buy what I want or go out with friends without doing the mental math first. Will this cost too much? Can I afford to say yes? Sometimes, I say no even when I want to say yes, because the financial strain makes me feel like I'm shrinking inside. It's not just about the money, it's the emotional toll of constantly feeling like I'm one paycheck away from disaster. I have moments where I feel trapped, like I'm stuck in a system that's rigged against people like me. It's as if the cost of living is a tide rising faster than my boat can sail. No matter how much I try to row harder, taking extra shifts, cutting back on coffee, canceling subscriptions, the shore never seems closer. There's this silent, exhausting battle between the desire to get ahead and the crushing reality of falling behind. It's exhausting to stay hopeful when the world's economy seems designed to keep people just barely afloat. Coping with this pressure has been its own journey. I've learned to find small pockets of peace in the chaos, a walk in the park, a call with an old friend, a night spent reading instead of scrolling through social media where everyone else seems to be thriving. But sometimes, the loneliness sneaks in, wrapped in shame and frustration. I catch myself wondering what I did wrong, or if I'm simply not trying hard enough. Social media doesn't help either, because it's a highlight reel of success and happiness that feels impossible to match. Yet, beneath the stress, there's still a flicker of hope, however fragile. I hold on to the idea that this phase won't last forever. Maybe someday the economy will shift, or I'll find a new path that leads to stability. Maybe I'll be able to breathe easier, to stop saying no to things that bring joy, to finally open that dusty box of postponed dreams. I want to believe that my worth isn't just what fits in my bank balance, that I'm more than the sum of financial pressures and setbacks. I don't have answers, and some days are harder than others, but I'm trying to keep moving forward. To remind myself that struggling doesn't mean failing. And maybe, just maybe, this story, my story, will someday be one of survival, of resilience, and of finally breaking free from a system that feels designed to hold me back. Until then, I'll keep waking up, facing the numbers, and finding whatever strength I can to keep going. Because despite it all, I still believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. I wake up every morning to the same tightness in my chest, a mix of anxiety and exhaustion that's become so routine it almost feels like a part of me. The moment my alarm rings, the weight of everything I have to face settles on my shoulders. It's not just the usual stress of getting ready for work, it's the creeping dread of bills, rent, groceries, and all the hidden expenses that seem to multiply no matter how careful I am. I graduated college 3 years ago, hopeful and full of dreams. I thought if I worked hard enough, I'd build a life where I wasn't constantly worrying about money. But here I am, stuck in a cycle where every paycheck disappears faster than I expect. Rent goes up. Utilities climb. Food prices surge. And yet, my salary has barely budged. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, you're desperate to keep up, but no matter how fast you move, you're not getting anywhere. Most days, my routine is shaped by that financial pressure. I make a meal plan on Sundays, calculating every ingredient so I don't overspend at the grocery store. I pack lunch instead of eating out, even when I'm so tired I want to treat myself. I skip social events because they cost too much, or because I don't want to admit to friends that I can't afford it right now. It's isolating. I sometimes wonder if people notice how I'm always the one saying no, or canceling plans last minute because I'm trying to save every dollar. There's this gnawing sense of shame that creeps in when I think about my situation. I work hard. I have a steady job. But it feels like the system is designed to keep me on the edge, never quite sinking, but never really able to breathe freely. It's like my life is a constant balancing act: pay the bills, keep the lights on, make sure I have enough food, and pray there isn't an unexpected expense that shatters the fragile peace. Some nights, I lie awake imagining what life could be if money wasn't such a heavy shadow. I dream about traveling, moving to a city where I can find better opportunities, or even just living somewhere where I don't have to choose between rent and medicine. I think about the hobbies I used to love: photography, painting, writing, and how I've set them aside because they seem like luxuries I can't afford in time or money. The world I envisioned after graduation feels like it's slipping further away every day. But I'm trying to hold on to hope. I've started small things, like saving just a few dollars here and there, even though it feels like a drop in the ocean. I've reached out to community groups and looked into programs that might help with rent or utilities during tough months. I talk to a counselor sometimes, because the weight of this pressure can feel crushing, and it helps to have someone listen without judgment. Still, the exhaustion is real. There are moments I feel like I'm invisible to the system, like my struggles don't matter because I'm just managing. But managing feels like survival, not living. I want more than survival. I want a future where I can breathe, create, love, and rest without the constant background noise of financial stress. The hardest part is the feeling of being trapped. It's like I'm in a cage made of bills and inflation rates and stagnant wages. The bars aren't physical, but they're just as real. I want to break free, but every step forward feels like 2 steps back because the cost of living keeps climbing, and my income doesn't. It's a frustrating, exhausting existence, but I'm still here. I'm still fighting for that future where money doesn't dictate my every choice. I don't know when or how things will change. Maybe it'll be a new job, or a policy shift, or some unexpected break. But until then, I'll keep waking up, calculating expenses, making tough choices, and holding on to the small dreams I haven't given up on yet. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.